Hey there, let me start with a weird observation. Every time someone says, don't worry, housing prices will crash, housing prices nod politely, dip a little, and then climb right back up like nothing happened. It's like watching a ball bounce. Down. Pause. Up again. And if you're trying to buy a home, that bounce feels personal. So let's meet Alice. Alice wants a house, not a mansion, not a castle. Just the normal place where the walls don't move and the landlord can't text her at 11 p.m. Alice checks listings. Prices are high. She waits. Interest rates go up. News talks about a cooling market. Alice smiles. This is it, she thinks. They'll finally fall. And for a moment, they do. A few listings drop. Some sellers panic. Alice refreshes her browser like it's a game show. Then something strange happens. Prices stop falling. Then they rise. Again. Alice stares at the screen and whispers, how? Great question. Because housing prices don't behave like normal prices. They don't fall easily, and they don't stay down for long. And it's not because everyone secretly agrees to keep them high. It's because housing is trapped inside several powerful forces that all push in one direction. Up. Let's bring in Bob. Bob owns a house. Bob is not a villain. Bob is just there. Bob bought his house years ago. It's worth more now. Bob likes that. Not because he's greedy, but because that house is his savings, his retirement, his safety net. So when prices wobble, Bob doesn't rush to sell. He waits. And that's the first big difference between housing and, say, bananas. If bananas get cheaper, stores lower prices immediately. If houses get cheaper, owners just don't sell. Supply freezes. Now let's talk about supply. This is huge. You can't quickly make more houses. You can't just wake up one morning and say, let's add 10,000 homes today. Building takes time. Years. Permits. Land. Labor. Materials. Regulations. So when demand rises, supply doesn't rush in to meet it. Prices rise instead. And when demand falls, supply doesn't rush out either. People don't destroy houses because prices dipped. They just wait. So prices get sticky. Now let's talk about demand. People don't want houses because they're trendy. They want them because they need somewhere to live. They want stability. They want space. And populations keep growing. Cities attract people. Jobs cluster. Opportunities concentrate. More people chasing the same limited space. That alone pushes prices up over time. Now add one more ingredient. Credit. Most people don't buy houses with cash. They buy them with loans. So housing prices are deeply tied to interest rates. When rates are low, monthly payments feel manageable. So people can afford more house, which pushes prices up. When rates rise, payments get painful. Demand slows. Prices soften. Alice thinks finally. But here's the catch. Existing homeowners already locked in low rates. Bob's mortgage is cheap, so Bob doesn't need to sell. He just stays put. New buyers suffer. Existing owners wait. Again, supply freezes. Now let's talk about psychology. Housing isn't just an asset. It's emotional. People will sell stocks quickly. They'll sell crypto in a panic. But houses? People cling to them. They'll cut spending. Take second jobs. Delay retirement. Anything to avoid selling at a loss. So when prices start to fall, sellers pull listings. Transactions drop. But prices don't collapse. Now let's talk about governments. This is important. Governments hate housing crashes. Because housing is tied to banks, mortgages, pensions, construction jobs, consumer confidence, when housing collapses, everything shakes. So when prices wobble too much, governments intervene. Lower rates, support lending, stimulate demand. Not because they love high prices, but because they fear crashes more. So there's a built-in safety net. Not for buyers. For the system. Now add investors. This is where things get spicy. When prices dip, investors don't panic. They hunt. They see dips as discounts. Rental demand doesn't disappear. People still need housing, so investors step in. They buy when others hesitate, which puts a floor under prices. Now Alice notices something else. Even when prices fall, they don't fall everywhere. Maybe luxury homes drop. Maybe certain suburbs cool. But starter homes? They barely budge. Why? Because demand is strongest at the bottom. More people can afford entry-level homes. So competition stays fierce. Now let's talk about inflation. When inflation exists, cash loses value. But houses? Houses tend to rise with inflation. They're real assets. So people pour money into them as a hedge, which again pushes prices up. Now pause. Look at what we've stacked so far. Limited supply, sticky sellers, emotional attachment, cheap credit at times, government fear of crashes, investor demand, inflation pressure. All of these make prices resistant to falling. And when prices do fall, they hit one of these cushions and bounce. Now Alice starts to understand something uncomfortable. Housing isn't priced to be fair. It's priced to clear the market. And when sellers don't need to sell, the market doesn't clear downward. It just slows, which makes waiting feel endless. Now let's address the big myth. Just wait for the crash. Crashes happen, but they're rare. And they usually require something extreme. Mass unemployment, credit freeze, forced selling. Without forced selling, prices don't collapse. They stall. And stalling still feels expensive if you're locked out. Now Alice looks at the market again. She realizes something important. Housing prices don't stay high because everyone agrees they should. They stay high because too many powerful forces make it rational to wait instead of selling cheap. And waiting is easier when you already own, which leads Alice to a frustrating thought. The system is great at protecting owners, not so great at welcoming new ones. And that's where the real tension lives. Not in bubbles, not in greed, but in a market designed to resist falling more than it resists rising. And once Alice sees that, she stops asking why won't prices fall and starts asking a harder question. If housing prices are this resistant, what would it actually take to make them fall meaningfully? And what would that cost to everyone else in the system? Because that answer explains why policymakers hesitate, why owners relax, and why buyers keep waiting, sometimes for years, as the market pauses, breathes, and prepares to do what it has done most of the time, which is quietly move upward again, Because for housing prices to really fall and stay down, something drastic has to happen. Not vibes, not headlines, not people tweeting bubble, forced selling. That's the key phrase. Housing prices don't fall hard until owners are forced to sell. Job losses, foreclosures, credit freezes, divorces, deaths, uncomfortable stuff. Normal discomfort doesn't do it. Recessions slow things. Higher rates cool things. But unless people have to sell, they don't. They wait. Bob waits. Millions of Bobs wait. And waiting is powerful. Now think about this. When prices fall in the stock market, people can click sell in seconds. When prices fall in housing, selling takes months. Paperwork, inspections, moving. So even when someone wants to sell, they hesitate. Time slows everything down. Now let's talk about the 2008 crash, because everyone brings it up. Yes, Alice says, but prices crashed then. True. And why? Because people were massively over-leveraged. Loans reset. Payments exploded. People had to sell. Banks foreclosed. Supply flooded the market. That's forced selling. Without that level of stress, prices wobble but don't break. Now look at today. Most homeowners are locked into fixed-rate mortgages. Low ones. Rates could double tomorrow, and Bob's payment wouldn't change. So Bob is insulated. Even if the market cools, Bob is comfortable. So again, no rush to sell. Now add one more layer. New construction. People say just build more houses. Yes, and also not that simple. Builders don't build unless prices justify it. If prices fall too much, projects get canceled. Supply shrinks again. So falling prices actually reduce future supply, which puts upward pressure back on prices. It's like trying to push a spring down. Now let's talk about rent. When people can't afford to buy, they rent. Rental demand rises. Rents rise. Higher rents make owning more attractive. Investors notice. They buy. Prices stabilize. So the inability to buy feeds demand for buying later. Another loop. Now Alice starts to feel the frustration more clearly. She's not crazy. The system really is tilted towards stability at high prices. Not intentionally. Structurally. Now let's talk about zoning. This is the least exciting topic and one of the most important. Many cities restrict building, height limit, single-family zoning, lengthy approvals. These rules limit supply by design, often to protect neighborhood character or existing property values, which means existing owners have political power. And they use, again, not evil, just rational. People protect what they own. Now Alice wonders something else. If prices always go up, why doesn't everyone get rich from housing? Because time matters. If you already own, rising prices help you. If you don't, rising prices hurt you. Housing rewards early entry, punishes late entry, which makes inequality worse. Now let's talk about demographics. People are living longer, which means homes stay occupied longer. Turnover slows, fewer listings, less supply, upward pressure. At the same time, young adults form households later. But when they do, they arrive in waves. Demand spikes. Again, pressure. Now step back. Housing is not a normal market. It's slow, sticky, emotional, political. It's a place to live and an investment and a retirement plan and a loan collateral. Too many roles. So when Alice hears someone confidently say prices will fall soon, she now hears what they're not saying. They're not saying millions of people will be forced to sell, because without that, prices usually don't fall for long. They pause, they plateau, they adjust slowly, which feels like falling until it doesn't. Now Alice asks the most important question. So what does this mean for me? It means timing the housing market is incredibly hard. It means waiting for a crash is a risky life strategy. And it means housing affordability is a structural problem, not a cyclical one. Fixing it requires more supply, better zoning, long-term planning, and patience. Things markets are bad at delivering on their own. Now here's the hardest truth. Housing prices staying high isn't a sign the system is working well. It's a sign it's protecting stability over accessibility. That choice avoids crises, but it locks people out. And societies are still figuring out how to balance that. Now Alice looks at the market one last time. She doesn't feel hopeful. She doesn't feel hopeless. She feels informed. She knows why prices don't fall easily. She knows what would have to happen for them to really fall. And she knows why everyone in power is terrified of that scenario. Because a housing crash doesn't just help buyers. It breaks banks, destroys savings, kills confidence. So policymakers choose slow pain over fast disaster, which explains the pattern. Small dips, quick recoveries, long upward trends, not because it's fair, but because it's survivable. So, in conclusion, housing prices rarely fall for long because supply is slow, sellers can afford to wait, governments fear crashes, and demand never fully disappears. Without forced selling, prices tend to stall rather than collapse, and every dip runs into cushions like low-rate mortgages, investors, zoning limits, and inflation. Understanding this doesn't make buying easier, but it explains why waiting for a big crash is often a losing strategy in a system designed to resist falling more than rising. If you want me to make other videos explaining these topics, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.